I like South Florida comedy. I ask comedians this, and I always think it's like we're pretentious. Like even saying the South Florida comedy scene, we're not a comedy scene.
I think the reason it's kind of wrong to call it a scene is because it's not like a focused group of people presenting it. Like a scene, you know, like a punk scene.
Right.
There's nothing like that.
They have an agenda.
Right. There's nothing like that.
Comedy in South Florida. I didn't really have a general question. I just wanted to hear what people thought about it. What South Florida comics thought about doing comedy in South Florida. Real quick, the Mike Lawrence interview, the audio is kind of off a little bit. There's a huge issue with the camera. I uploaded it like 4 times. It took like 2 hours to try to fix. You guys don't care. Cool. So let's hear what people have to say about comedy in South Florida.
When you smoke blueberry kush, you get so high, you see life through the eyes of a blueberry.
I think South Florida is the bachelor's degree of comedy. And then when you go to New York, it's like the master's degree. And when you go out to LA, it's like the doctorate. Like you start out here, you learn the basic information you need to survive. You go out to New York, and you really have to buckle down and do your comedy the best it can be, and then you get it all polished up and you get the fancy, doctor's coat out in LA, and that's when you start making your money, I guess.
Gotcha.
The moment I started, I just had a feeling that I had to leave, and that it was also because I knew that staying in the place that I was born meant that I was never gonna truly fight as hard as I needed to. Also, once you make a sacrifice like moving anywhere, and I think that's part of why the industry is so focused on going to LA or going to New York. They want to know that you're willing to make a sacrifice. They want to know that you care enough about this to take some kind of leap. Once you leave that first time, knowing you can leave at any time.
Gotcha.
And I love Florida. It's my hometown and all that. But I don't even, and the things that I don't like about it, I don't even think I dislike because it's Florida. It's I dislike because it's my hometown. But getting older, any place that you're from, you want to leave and find your own way, because that's just what growing up is. But it's cool coming back. It's weird, because I grew up here. And I lived here 23 years, but I only did comedy for a year and 2 months here. So I'm definitely a South Floridian, but I don't fully identify as a South Florida comic just because I mostly have been doing it in New York.
Somebody just like, I'm gonna come steal this guy's family. He has a sign on the front door to warn people or something. It just says, I don't call 911. I was like, really, dude? Not even for medical emergencies?
My goal was always to, let's see how good I can get before I need to move. And my goal was, to move 2 years after when I actually did. So I was kind of sped up. But, when you move to LA, especially, you start over. And I didn't want I just wanted to be part of that ground level. And go up, because that's what you have to do. It's the ground roots thing. You go, you see all the open mics, you get in the shows, you do this, do that. But here is an amazing place because there's so much comedy.
Everything down here is kind of a training ground. You're gonna get as good as you can down here, putting in your time, work on your sets, and perfect your craft. So by the time that opportunity comes knocking, you'll be ready to make a move to another scene or something like that, because it does bring a uniqueness that you're not gonna find elsewhere, because we have a lot of smart dudes down here, man. They just don't know them yet because they're not in New York or they're not in California.
Right? Every year something fucked up happens to Haiti. A flood, an earthquake, Sean Penn. Something fucked up.
I hear a lot of negative stuff. And usually it comes from people that don't work down here. I think it might be because we're so geographically secluded from the rest of the country that people aren't exposed to us. So there's they don't hear anything about us, so they just assume it's bad. Florida comics, I think we have a lot to offer down here. There's a good core group of guys that have been around since I started that are all still performing and making this their living now. And with the emergence of a lot of the bar rooms and things like that, there's just tons of comics down here who are all very, very good, very promising. I think it's a great scene. I think that, you know, the fact that there's 4 A rooms within 2 hours of my house in Miami here that I can get regular feature work at really allowed me to grow as a comic and a lot of other guys. I think that the fact that because of those 4 A rooms, there's a lot of people that got interested in comedy and then decided to start doing bar shows. There's even more places to get up now. So there's a lot of great comics down here. I don't think it's necessarily a problem with what we have to offer. I think it's more of just not a lot of comics traveling, and that's happening a lot now. It hasn't before. There's very few guys that were leaving Florida to work, but now there's a lot of South Florida comics who are branching out, and people are starting to understand, oh, there's a lot of guys, you know, coming out of that area.
Like, that's all the horror movies went. You ever seen this is Paranormal Activity?
This is a great place to get a ton of stage time with very little pressure, and just you can get it in many different ways. I always say it's like the Wild West out here because there's so much territory. You can just start your own posse out of nowhere, and you have this alternative scene springs up in bars and restaurants and clubs and record stores and anywhere that you can fit comedy that's interesting and unique. This among them.
Okay.
So,
I think there's a surprising level of talent here. I really do. There's a lot of guys who have a lot of funny and a lot of potential. There's just no impetus or path, or you feel like in New York and LA there's at least something like a path, there's something like a top floor that you can crawl to somehow. But here in Florida there's kind of you just get good and leave, you know.
Right. Now, do you think that there's a part where you can get good, and then once you hit that threshold of I've done the best I can, now you're just wasting time?
Yeah, absolutely I do. And yeah, that's kind of one of the reasons why I quit doing comedy and went back to school, because I felt like I kind of reached that point, but I have no money. I have no financial anything that I can build off of. I have no foundation. So even if I wanted to move to LA tomorrow, it's just impossible.
Okay. So let's look at it like this. South Florida, we have a total of 6 comedians, and we have about 400 people who tell jokes. Move out of your current scene when you've conquered every single obstacle that it presents you with. If there's a local festival that you're not getting into, keep trucking. If there's a major comedy club that doesn't book you, stay local. If you don't have a solid 15 minutes of jokes that work all over the country, stay local. If your act is based off of local street signs, stay local. If you want to move out of the state, establish yourself as one of the best comics in your state.
What I feel like I've learned is if you do comedy in Florida, use it as a training ground. Use it to get good. Use it to learn how to hold the mic, do crowd work, and write jokes. Almost think of it like if we were in a video game, Florida is like a tutorial. That it's not even level 1. It's how you learn how to play the game. So if you like these, please like, subscribe, comment, do all that crap. Share them with other comics. My goal is to try to get this to not only be a South Florida comedy thing, but for it to just be a comedy thing. Modern comedian, I'm looking at you for inspiration.